Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So I have for you guys today, I have my week 15 championship score predictions to bring to you guys. So first of all, I do have to make a quick apology at the start of this video. Basically, guys, I've not had much time to make any other videos this week, so apologies that this is like the first video of the week. Normally I get a couple others out before that, but like I said, I have been quite busy this week, but I will try and get some other episodes and some new videos out for the remainder of this week for you guys. But today we actually have some championship score predictions, guys. So if you've not seen this series before, let me briefly explain how it all goes down. So every week, guys, I give you my championship score predictions for what I think the outcome of each and every individual match will finish in the championship. FIFA 17 also makes their predictions, but what I'm really interested to know is what you guys have to say. So in the description down below, I will leave all the fixtures that are taking place this weekend, and I want you guys to make your predictions. Then if you do manage to successfully guess any of your scorelines this week, guys, I will include your comment in the next video, guys. So first of all, before we get into my predictions, I will include your comments now on the screen from last week's predictions, actually, because I didn't actually get the chance to make a championship predictions video last week. The reason for that was it was a bit awkward, really, because there was a match on Monday, so I didn't really have time to make the video after that, so I just didn't do one for that week. But as well as that, if you would like to leave a comment as to what you thought of last week's games, feel free to do that, because we had some pretty mental scorelines. I mean, Blackburn Rovers beating Newcastle for one. That was just ridiculous. That's my result of the weekend last week, without a shadow of a doubt. What a result that was. But without further ado, guys, we'll get into this week's score predictions now. So our first score prediction we have, guys, is actually QPR coming up against Wolves. So this one's actually taking place tonight on a Thursday. This is just, the world's going mad now with a Thursday night kickoff in the Championship. But like I said, guys, this is quite actually a big encounter, actually. This is obviously Ian Holloway's third game now in charge of QPR after he's got one win on the board and one defeat. And Wolves, you know, at this point in time, really are in a bit of turmoil, to be honest. You know, they're on the verge of getting into this relegation, getting into the relegation zone at this point in time. And relegation for Wolves this season, I think, is a real possibility now. And I think a lot of their fans are suddenly realising that. And it's going to take a lot for them to turn this around, because when I saw Wolves play, really, what I saw most of all, which was most apparent to me, was it was more like seeing 11 individuals playing and not as a fluent team. And I think that really could come as a big problem for them for the remainder of this. Obviously, QPR not coming off the back of a good result. Obviously, they got beat 3-0 by Ipswich. But for this game, just with the way Wolves have been playing, I'm going to back QPR for this one. So I'm going to say this one's going to end 2-0 to QPR. FIFA said this one's going to end 1-1. Then to our next match, guys, we have a match being played on Friday night. So once again, we've got some weird fixture kickoffs. But this one's actually a very interesting encounter. For this one, we have Nottingham Forest coming up against Newcastle United. So, of course, last week, Nottingham Forest managed to get a victory. And surprisingly so, Newcastle United lost to Blackburn Rovers. So going into this game, I don't know where I stand on this one, really. I mean, Newcastle as well got knocked out of the EFL Cup recently as well by Hull City, so I'm not sure where their squad morale will be at, and of course they've had less time to recover for this match than Nottingham Forest will have. However, saying that, I am going to back Newcastle to win this match. I think it's hard to do. I just think with Nottingham Forest and how inconsistent they have been, I'm not sure whether they'll be able to string 2 wins on the bounce. But for this game, I do see a lot of goals being scored, so I'm going to say this one is going to end 4-3 to Newcastle. I think a lot of goals will be in this one. FIFA's saying 1-0 Forest. Then into our next match, guys, we have Birmingham coming up against Barnsley. So going into this match, you know, Birmingham at this point in time seem to be finding themselves on a fantastic bit of form. They currently find themselves within the playoffs. So I'd like to hear from actually a couple of Birmingham fans as to what you think is possible for the rest of the season. I mean, what Gary Rowett's been able to do with this Birmingham side has been just miraculous so far this season. I mean, going into this season, you know, if I was to put in terms of how strong Birmingham's squad was, I probably wouldn't have even... Maybe it would have got into the top 10, but into the top 6, definitely not. So I think from what he's able to get out of these Birmingham players has been fantastic so far. So going into this match as well, Barnsley currently find themselves on a downward spiral of form. So for this one, I'm going to say it's going to end 2-1 to Birmingham. FIFA said 0-0. And then going into our next match, guys, we have Blackburn Rovers coming up against Huddersfield Town. So two teams at this point in time which are on opposite ends of the table, but really in contrasting form. Blackburn Rovers currently find themselves on a fantastic bit of form, obviously, coming off just that ridiculous result against Newcastle. I mean, Blackburn Rovers fans, what did you make of that game? Leave it in the comments down below, because to me, it was just mental. I mean, I was predicting that game was going to end 4-0 to Newcastle, so that game was just insane. And Huddersfield, of course, coming off the back of a very disappointing defeat to Wigan Athletic on Monday night. So going into this game, it's hard to judge where the character of this Huddersfield squad will actually be at. But I think I've seen quite a bit of unfair criticism thrown at Huddersfield. You know, a lot of people saying like they're bottling it now and all that. I think looking at it from the start of the season perspective, you know, Huddersfield fans would have more than taken where they are in the table at this point in time at the start of the season, in my opinion. It's just because they started so well, which I think a couple of people are being a bit harsh on them for. But for this game, I'm going to say is going to end as a 1-1. I think Huddersfield may be looking to be a bit more defensive, a bit more defensively stable. FIFA said that this one's going to end as a 0-0. And then going into our next match, guys, we have Bristol City coming up against Ipswich Town. So for me, this is actually a really difficult one to predict. The reason I say that is because Ipswich so far this season have been really up and down so far, and these two sides actually come up against each other on exactly the same amount of points. So it's going to be a really interesting one actually as to how these two sides go about each other. I could definitely see this one ending as a draw, but I am just about going to back Bristol City. I mean, the current form that Bristol City find themselves in isn't great compared to what they were probably a month ago when they really were up in the playoff position, but since then, obviously, they've had a little drop, but I am going to back Bristol City to win this match. Ipswich, of course, are coming off the back of a fantastic result last week, managing to win 3-0. I just think, once again, it's quite similar to Nottingham Forest with how inconsistent they have actually been, especially away from home. I don't think Ipswich have been great this season. So Bristol City as well against Reading played decent. So I'm going to say this one's going to end at 2-1 to Bristol City. FIFA's actually said the opposite to me. They've said that the Ipswich are going to win this one 1-0. And then going into our next match, guys, we have Burton Albion coming up against Rotherham United. So the big news coming out of Rotherham a couple of days ago was that they've actually lost their manager now. Kenny Jackett has walked away from the club, and when this news broke, I was completely taken back by it. I honestly couldn't believe it. I mean, that comes after the Derby Day defeat to Leeds United, and I just couldn't believe it, really. I mean, where Rotherham are left now, rock bottom of the table, without a manager, without any hope, really, I'd say, for the rest of this season now. Surely it's going to be a write-off. If Rotherham weren't able to stay up for the rest of the season, it would just be ridiculous, but I cannot see that happening in any universe, to be honest. But so for this match, I'm going to back Burton for the win. You know, it's pretty obvious, really. I think their home form this season has been very impressive. So for this one, I'm going to say is going to end 3-0 to Burton Albion. I just think that the morale around Rotherham at the moment, I can't see it being very high at this point. FIFA's actually agree with me for this one, but they've said that this one's going to end 1-0 to Burton Albion. Then into our next match, guys, we have Cardiff coming up against Brighton. So once again, this is a really difficult one to predict. Obviously, Cardiff's form since Neil Warnock has walked into the club has seen a bit of a rejuvenation. They still currently find themselves in and around the bottom of the table. However, come the end of the season, I would be very surprised if they were still there come the end of the season. Like I said, I expect Cardiff to be probably comfortable mid-table. That's where I'd see them finishing at the end of this season. But of course, Brighton now looking to capitalise on Newcastle perhaps slipping up again against Nottingham Forest perhaps after that Blackburn result. So I am going to back Brighton for this victory. However, I do see it being a very tightly contested match. So I'm going to say that Brighton are just going to scrape this one 2-1 to Brighton. FIFA's actually said that Brighton are going to win this one 3-0. A big scoreline that for FIFA. And then into our next match, guys, we have Fulham coming up against Reading. So this is actually a really difficult one to predict yet again. We've got quite a few of these ones coming up this week, guys, which are pretty hard to predict. But Fulham, of course, currently find themselves in a rich vein of form. Lately, they dropped off a little bit, I suppose, in late weeks. But their form currently has been fantastic from what they showed at the start of the season. And, you know, Reading, similarly to that, they have just been outstanding lately. They've been on this winning streak, which just seems to, they just keep on building on lately. Of course, they got that fantastic result last week against Bristol City, and going up against Fulham, I do see this as a sort of game where Reading might actually come unstuck in this game. But saying that, with the current form that they currently find themselves in, I'm actually going to say this one's going to end as a 1-1 draw. I can definitely see this one being a tightly contested match at Craven Cottage, and FIFA's actually said that this one will also end as a draw, but as a 0-0. Then into our next match, guys, we have Norwich coming up against Brentford. So obviously this is a massive game as well, because both of these sides currently find themselves in really bad form compared to how actually they started the season. Both of them started the season quite positively. However, since then they have seen a major drop off in their form, and you know, Norwich has been the one which has been well publicised. Obviously they were expected to get automatic promotion back to the Premier League. That doesn't seem to be like it's going to be the case this season, unless Alex Neil is going to be able to rejuvenate this season and turn it around. Can I see that happening? I'm not really so sure, but going up against this Brentford side at home, who also haven't been in the best form lately, this is a massive chance for Alex Neil, I feel like. And probably this is one of the games which he really does need to win this game now, because the current form that Brentford find themselves in, of course Norwich haven't been great recently either, but you'd expect Norwich to be winning this game. But can I see it? I just can't really. I can't really back Norwich with the current form they're in either. So I'm going to say this one's going to end as another 1-1 draw. I can definitely see that happening. I mean, Brentford's only shining light at this point in time is Scott Hogan, so he's going to, of course, pose a threat for them. So I'm going to say this one's going to end level. FIFA said that Norwich are going to win this one 1-0. And then into our next match, guys, we have Sheffield Wednesday coming up against my team, Preston North End. So obviously, Preston are coming off the back of 2 successive draws, which are... It's caused a lot of frustration, really, I feel like, in the Preston camp, as Preston's latest 2 draws against Wolves and Burton Albion, both at home, have caused a lot of frustration, purely because I feel like Preston should have won both of those games. So we're going up against the Sheffield Wednesday side, which have found themselves in a good bit of form, actually, lately. Of course, Forestieri last week was, like, unplayable, so I am a bit nervous as to coming up against him in this game. And, you know, that last result for Sheffield Wednesday could turn out to be a turning point for them in this season, because I do fully expect them to make the playoffs with that current squad they've got. So away at Hillsborough as well for Preston, I think we could become unstuck in this game. So I'm actually going to say this one's going to end... I want to back Preston, but I'm going to say this one's going to end as a 2-1 victory to Sheffield Wednesday. I could see this game going a couple of ways, to be honest, but I am going to say that's how this one's going to turn out. FIFA said that this one's going to end as a 0-0. Then into our next match, guys, we have Wigan Athletic coming up against Derby County. So Wigan actually got one of the shock results of last weekend as well, managing to pull off a victory against Huddersfield Town, which was quite unexpected for them, actually. Of course, that was Warren Joyce's first victory in charge of Wigan. However, they are coming up against this Derby County side, who are probably one of the form teams in the Championship at this moment. And with just how good Derby have been going forward and how shaky Wigan have looked at the back, it's a hard one to do, but I am going to back Derby for a 3-1 victory in this match. If Wigan do actually get something from this match, I'll be very impressed, and maybe not too surprised, but I mean, with how Derby is playing so far this season, I'll be very surprised if they don't get a couple of goals in this match. So I'm going to say 3-1 Derby, FIFA's saying 0-0. And then for our last match, guys, we have Leeds United coming up against Aston Villa. So this is one that I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how it actually pans out. So of course, Leeds United coming off the back of that 2-1 victory against Rotherham. They're looking to put that Newcastle game behind them now, but Aston Villa so far this season, they're currently unbeaten under Steve Bruce, and you know, Leeds have been decent, you know, up to that Newcastle match. They really were on fire this season, so it's a difficult one to predict, and I'm actually going to say this one's going to end as a 2-2 draw. I can see quite a few goals being scored in this game. I mean, with how both their attacks are currently, I mean, Jonathan Cudger for Aston Villa lately has been on another level. I mean, that's the sort of quality that they expected when they brought him into the club, and he's just been delivering lately. So I'm going to say this one's going to end as a 2-2 draw. FIFA said this one's going to end as a 0-0. So there we have it, guys. There are all my score predictions for this week's encounters in the Championship, guys. So make sure you do get your score predictions in the comments down below, guys. And leave as well what you thought of last week's games, as I didn't get to do a Championship roundup then. As well as that, who do you think will be the player of the week? For me this week, I'm going to say that the player of the week is going to be, I'm going to say Adam Reach, actually. He's coming up against Preston, playing for Sheffield Wednesday now. Of course, he was at Preston last season, so I can see him having a blinder for Sheffield Wednesday this week. Don't know why, but I'm going to say Adam Reach. But like I said, guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So thank you so much for watching. Apologies for the lack of uploads recently. I have just been quite busy, but I will try and get a couple of other videos out for you guys this week. But like I said, guys, that will now wrap it up for this video. So thank you so much for watching. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure you do leave a like. It is always massively appreciated, guys. As well as that, make sure you check out all the links in the description down below. But other than that, guys, I will see you all in the next one.